Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books. Today I'm here with a tag for Tag Tuesday, and it's a new one, the BookTube Backstage tag, put together by Reiner at Rainier Books. Both Roz at Scallydandling About the Books and Bill Rutenberg were kind enough to tag me this morning, and I thought I'd try to get something out this afternoon. Atypically timely for me, no? So let's get started. The first question, what camera do you use for your videos? When I first started my channel, I used my very old cell phone. I had no idea that I would actually continue this channel past a video or two, much less start to take it as seriously as I do and enjoy it so much. So there was no way I would have invested in any real equipment at that point. I knew my phone was only recording in mono, but what I didn't realize is that apparently it only produced sound that came out of the left speaker or earbud or whatever. I didn't know that for a long time because I'm deaf in one ear, the right ear. Kind BookTube viewers let me know, and I found a way via editing to make sound come out of both speakers. Anyway, after I officially started a job teaching online a few months after I started my channel, I suddenly had access to some much nicer recording equipment. Incidentally, I'm not teaching now, partly because of the pandemic, and I'm not sure I'll be going back. Kind of a long story. But because of that job, I now use a quite nice DSLR as my main camera for filming videos, despite the fact that I know very little about photography and really don't know how to use my camera's special bells and whistles. Whenever I include any extra footage in a BookTube video, it was probably shot either on my old mobile phone, which is small enough that I almost always have it in my pocket, on my husband's much newer iPhone, or possibly shot by my son on his mirrorless camera, which I think he received for his 18th birthday from his grandmother's, maybe. The next question. Speaking of filming and being your own director, do you have a favorite film director? I'm not a huge film buff, and I know very little about directors, honestly, but I want to name a few female directors here. I love the films of Mira Nair, from Salaam Bombay and Monsoon Wedding to Mississippi Masala and Vanity Fair. I haven't yet seen her version of A Suitable Boy, but I would like to. Another director who I just discovered last year is Kelly Reichardt, who created the film First Cow. It takes what is kind of a dude bro setup and turns it on its head into something far more powerful and resonant. And I'll also name Greta Gerwig. I was one of those people who did not love Little Women for several different reasons, but at the same time, I thought Gerwig's work to transform the 19th century book into a 21st century film was really creative and feminist, and kind of brilliant in a way. Question number 3. What microphone do you use, and what program do you use to edit your videos? From the online teaching company I worked with, I have a USB microphone which I have hooked up to run through my camera. When, after the world opens up, and I think I will be returning the company's equipment, I will need to replace the Blue Yeti, or whatever it is called, and I assume I'll get something that attaches to the top of my camera. My son, who some of you know is a huge Shakespeare nerd, is also a sound designer who knows a lot about microphones, so I'll be asking for his advice at that point. As for the editing software, I use a free program called Lightworks. There is an expensive version you can purchase, actually, but I say free because pretty much all of the editing features are available without charge. Those of us who go the free route can only export the edited file in a fairly low quality, and some booktubers might see that as a limitation. Since I really don't know what I'm doing when I'm filming or editing, I suspect any problems you see in the quality of my videos have more to do with the stuff I don't know or understand than it does with the export restrictions. I choose Lightworks as a program to use because I don't have a powerful computer at all, and the other two free editors I tried made my computer overheat. Lightworks is light, And it's a fairly sophisticated program, apparently, although that's not why I use it. Successful commercial movies have been filmed on Lightworks, including Pulp Fiction, Romeo plus Juliet, Moulin Rouge, and The King's Speech. I definitely recommend it. After watching the set of introductory videos, I started to find the program pretty intuitive. But if you've already learned to do photo editing on another program, I've heard that Lightworks works in a slightly different way and isn't a completely seamless adjustment. The fourth question. Do you remember the first record that you bought or received as a gift? Well, this question brings up perhaps the most humiliating thing I have ever said on this channel. But let me go back for 1 second. My father had an enormous record collection full of a great variety of classical music, as well as a huge collection of jazz albums and many other things. I vaguely remember having a couple of records of my own that were essentially audiobooks, where I could sit on the floor, put the needle on the record player on the single disc, and listen to a story while I looked at a picture book. There was a little bell that would ring whenever you were supposed to turn the page. I suspect those records might have been gifts because I don't think my parents would have bought them for me. I was an early reader, so I didn't need the audio to keep me entertained, but mostly both my parents were people who loved to read aloud to me whenever I wanted, and if their hands were busy, they would recite stuff to me they had memorized, or tell me folk tales, or even sing old story-based ballads. So, the embarrassing bit. The first record I am sure was given to me as a gift was a single, presented to me by a young friend on my birthday, probably when it was brand new in April of 1974 when I turned 7 years old, or I guess possibly a year later. The song was Billy Don't Be a Hero. I'll link to a YouTube version below. On to the next question. How do you prepare your videos? Talking points, a detailed script, or just talking? I am an incredible introvert and extremely camera shy on top of it. While I've gotten a little more comfortable over the past year plus that I've been on BookTube, I still really need to write out a detailed script and practice it as well. I've said before that I really think by typing. I once received a comment on a video suggesting that I ought to try making a video without my over-preparation, so I could seem a bit looser and less formal. And I realized that the choice I had was either to script everything out or to bail on this channel completely, which I don't want to do. Thanks to all of you who are willing to listen to what I know is kind of an atypical style here. And let me say that while I personally will be continuing to more or less script all my videos, that doesn't mean I expect or even want other people to do it. I do appreciate it if people have thought about what they want to say a bit beforehand, maybe just ruminating for a minute in the shower before they jump on camera, or while on a run, as Roz at Scally Damling said in her version of this tag this morning. But I quite enjoy relaxed, playful presenters who are just chatting. I'm definitely more than a bit envious of that skill. Question number 6. TV shows have become a thing of our time. Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, Netflix, HBO, and Amazon. What are your favorite TV shows ever? Name a maximum of 3. I grew up basically without television in my daily life. Not quite literally, but certainly mostly true in practice. My parents had an old black and white set in their bedroom when I was little, although by that time everybody else had big color sets. Whenever I was sick, I would spend the day in their bed with a stack of Encyclopedia Brown books and maybe a Nancy Drew, as well as permission to plug in and watch the television a bit. Mostly I remember watching old movies from the 1940s televised while I was in a feverish haze. The television I saw most when I was very young was actually the Watergate hearings, because my parents, especially my mother, was obsessed. During those years, I think I remember their portable TV being brought out to the living room. One of my mother's heroes was Sam Ervin, the senator from North Carolina where we lived then. Let me share this paragraph from the Washington Post about his work on the Watergate hearings, and you might understand why my parents even bought me a Senator Sam t-shirt to honor him. With his arching eyebrows and flapping jowls that signaled his moral indignation at much of the testimony before his committee, his half-country, half-courtly demeanor, and his predilection for making points by quoting the Bible and Shakespeare and telling folksy stories, Irvin quickly became a hero to many. The only television show I remember watching at all regularly in my youth was The Waltons, which my family deeply loved. John Boy, along with Jo March from my beloved book Little Women, encouraged me to become a writer. I didn't watch much TV after that until the year I was recovering from brain surgery when I was 25 years old. I couldn't read for most of that year, and a friend set up his old black and white television in my apartment. And another friend, the man who became my spouse, kept me company during that year, and he introduced me to some of his favorite shows. I recovered and eventually was able to read again well enough to study for comprehensive exams where I was reading a new academic book every day to prepare for orals. Then I got a job teaching at a college in Washington, D.C., while David was still in med school in Philadelphia. I lived on the campus for my first year, something I don't recommend for very young professors. It was quite lonely because the people I could spend time with were students, people I really couldn't be friends with, even though many were close to my age. And I was taking the train to Philadelphia, 2 hours north, every other weekend or so to see David and my other friends there. That year, when David was spending long hours in the hospital doing various rotations, the television show ER was in its very first season. I watched every week, thinking about David spending his time with patients just as Noah Wiley was. To call it one of my favorite television shows might not be accurate, but it was definitely one of the shows that had the biggest role in my life. And for a third show, I'll choose one that is new for me, but an old one for many of you, I'm sure, The West Wing. On the afternoon that the AP and others called the 2020 election for Joe Biden, David and I watched the first episode of Season 1 and totally fell in love with it. I talked in a video back then about why we hadn't seen The West Wing earlier, so I won't go into it now, but I will link to it below if you're curious. After just the first few minutes, even, we knew that The West Wing was the perfect show to hold us from that day all the way until the inaugural, a period of time we were afraid would bring a degree of chaos and fear, as it has. What we didn't expect, however, is that The West Wing would abruptly disappear from our streaming service only a few weeks later, as we were getting close to the end of Season 2. I kept looking around for another place to watch it for free, and was thrilled to find our local library has all the DVDs for the entire series. I put them all on hold, and apparently a whole lot of other people had exactly the same idea about this being a perfect time to watch or rewatch the series. This weekend, I did my every other week curbside pickup at the library, and Season 3 was in. We still have a couple of episodes to see from Season 2, but we might just skip ahead unless the Season 2 set comes in immediately. The next question. Question 7. What kind of BookTube videos do you prefer to watch and why? Reviews, wrap-ups, vlogs, book hauls, tag videos, or something else? It really depends on the person. I love deep discussions of books and really love when people compare 2 or 3 books they've just read. As I mentioned yesterday, sometimes the books just happen to speak to each other in interesting but unexpected ways. That kind of serendipity can come out even in Friday Reads or whatever. I also really love tag videos, partly because they're places where I often feel I get to know other bookish people here, both the bookish part and sometimes other parts as well, as in Reiner's tag. Some people make just wonderful vlogs, too, showing not just where they live, but what they like to do and how they think, and even what informs their practice of reading. I'm always behind on watching as much BookTube as I would like, and one of the things I most often skip is the book haul video. But even that depends on the person. When the booktuber can really talk about that book thoughtfully, and perhaps even put it into a larger bookish context for me, as opposed to just holding it up and saying they acquired it, I can really fall in love with that kind of haul. Number 8. Watching TV was probably a part of all of our childhoods. These years, it's become less popular. What kind of media user are you? Well, as I've said, I watch a lot more television now than I did when I was young. Actually, we don't have a television, but we'll watch TV shows shown on Netflix or Amazon Prime or on DVDs from the library. My favorite source for television is actually PBS Passport. In exchange for a small annual donation, you get access to a wide range of PBS productions, as well as British productions, including everything from Vera and Endeavour to The Great British Bake Off, from the Durrells and Corfu, or the new All Creatures Great and Small, which I'm eager to see. I almost never watch anything other than BookTube if I'm the only one watching, but in the evenings or on weekend afternoons, my family sometimes gets together for something like that. My son and husband also watch more action-oriented movies or shows together sometimes, but I usually skip out for those. As for other social media use, I have long had a Twitter account, initially started back when I had a knitting blog many, many years ago. I do read Twitter a bit now, but am not particularly active there or on my Instagram account. I thought I might try to do a bit more in 2021 on both those platforms, but I got sucked into world events instead this month. I also used to participate on Ravelry, a great social network for knitters, but I really don't much anymore. I do have a Facebook account, and that's where I keep in touch with my in-real-life friends, including folks from grammar school and college, etc., usually about what's going on in my family and community. And I admit that I have not been particularly active on Facebook for the last few months either. If a time comes when I can't make videos for a while, I might share my Facebook account with any of you who want to check in with what is going on in my family. Oh, and I also have a far too neglected Goodreads account. Occasionally I think about trying one of the alternate platforms for readers, like Litsy or Storygraph. But since I've never kept up with Goodreads at all, I don't really want to bite off anything new. I'd love to hear from any of you who use one of the alternatives to hear what you've found and whether you really like it. Still, BookTube is my major social media interest at this point, and I suspect it will stay that way for my non-family type involvement. Well, the last part of the BookTube backstage tag is to tag 8 people, since there are 8 questions. I'll list them in the description box as well as here, and as of the time when I started filming this video, they were not yet tagged. I'd love to hear from Una and Crypto at the Codex Cantina, who I know have talked about their backstage setup a bit already. Olive from A Book Olive, who just got a new camera. Tori at Hufflepuff Discovery, who did a great version of Reiner's other tag, the By the Book tag, which I saw this morning. Sean the Book Maniac. Lukash at Cruel Reader's Thesis. Svea Scheik. Leo at A Little Book Life. And Kim at Middle of the Book March. Thanks, Reiner, for making this wonderful tag, and to Roz and Bill for tagging me. And thanks to all of you for joining me here today on Hannah's Books. See you soon.